Sawasdee krab. My name's Sirikorn Rodchanasak. Today, my topic will be improving speaking and listening skills. Today, joining me today is Ajahn Michael Mandigo from Saathit Rorathit. Ajahn Michael has been teaching in Thailand for nearly 20 years, and he has taught at all levels, from elementary to university levels. And prior to coming to Thailand, he was a lawyer in Washington, D.C. for 15 years. Thank you for joining me.
My pleasure.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Now, Ajahn Mike, what I would like to share with you is based on my experiences, and I would like to hear your thoughts and opinions with regard to, the topic. Okay. For me, as a non-native speaker, the things which I believe that are difficult but important for listening and speaking improvements are, firstly, pronunciation. As you know, Thais have difficulties in pronouncing words such as, shy, child, while, cloudy, crowded, food, foot, and fruit. For examples, let me just give you a few examples. I dropped some food on my foot, or I dropped some foot on my food. Mm-hmm. Your take, please, on pronunciation based on your invaluable experience.
I would say this, the traditional educational view is that pronunciation is not that important. Not to contradict you, because I agree with you.
Thank you.
However, the traditional or typical educational thought is that as long as you can communicate and understanding, that's enough.
Okay.
However, as my background as a lawyer and and in the many years of teaching, sure, I have a saying, "Siang di, siang chalad." Sound good, sound smart.
All right.
And it's because while you can communicate to the great majority of the people, if you really focus on improving your pronunciation, people have a higher respect, a higher regard for your ability, and then consequently, the impressions you make as your ideas and so on. That, I think, is the main point.
Okay, and also if a person is able to pronounce correctly, it's easier for other person who talks to.
Correct.
You.
And there's as you well know, the difficult pronunciation sounds can make different meanings in different words. And one of the key aspects is pronouncing the ends of words. Mm-hmm. In English, so much meaning is in the ends of words, whether it's the plural, whether it's the verb conjugation, whether it's the change of word classes, the suffixes, and so on. The ends of words can make a big difference in meaning, and that's why pronouncing them is so important.
For examples, maybe?
Well, I mean, eating rice, not lice.
Okay.
Saying something like, I have instead of I had a dog. I have a dog. Then that's not the same understanding.
Okay.
Through the conversation and context, you can get understanding.
Okay. Same goes for food, foot, fruit.
Sure.
For example.
The L's and R's, the
right.
THs,
yes. okay.
the SHCH, there are
a lot of in my opinion, I believe that pronunciation is important, because now if you are able to distinguish or differentiate the sound, and then it makes you know the meaning of the word.
Yes.
It makes it easier.
Right, and I think to add to that is just the impression that you give on other people. When you care about the sounds, the correct sounds, it shows you care about the language.
Thank you.
Which
Thank
shows that you
Yes.
actually are a step above just general understanding.
Thank you. Very good point. Now let's talk about second point. I think in order to speak and listen, competitively, a non-native speaker has to know the meanings of the key words or keywords in a sentence. Because once you know the meaning, it's easier for you to listen or to respond or even to ask questions. If you one example, okay, the sentence, she had dumped him because she suspected that he was a suspect. So, a suspect is a noun, and suspected is a verb. So if a non-native speaking person is able to understand these two words, the difference between these two words, it helps a lot, doesn't it?
Right, and then the question, I think you touched on it a bit in what you said there, is that the ability to ask the proper questions is the key to learning.
Thank you.
And if we're trying to get meaning, it means you're trying to learn something. You're trying to get some new information. And one of the things I like to teach my students are the three basic questions. What, to define, but then not only to define, how, which is to relate, to connect to the subject. And then the third is why. Why is it important? What do you walk away knowing or feeling? Being able to ask the right questions. You may not know the meanings of words, but if you can ask the right questions, you can then learn. And the key to being able, and I think this is not stressed enough in English, have the students ask the correct questions, because that empowers the student to learn, not just waiting for the definition from somebody else.
Or not just being passive, so to speak.
Right, waiting for the definition, somebody gives knowledge. I always say a teacher's job is not to give knowledge. A teacher's job is to give power to the students so that they can get the knowledge themselves.
Thank you. Great point. Now, my last point that I would like to bring it up is, I believe prepositions, the correct use of prepositions are important. Now, due to the fact that English prepositions and Thai prepositions are different, and more often than not, they have different meanings. So we Thais, we tend to mix it up, and oftentimes use those prepositions incorrectly. Just for a few examples, the sentences, just like, I'm married to her in Thai, and it's I'm married with her. Sorry, I'm married with her in Thai, and I'm married to her. That's in English. You take, please, on.
Well, I think this is very much related to the pronunciation, which is you can get by with communication, but the more you study the language, the more you use it correctly, then the higher level of understanding you will get, as well as the impressions you give on others.
Sure. So, in other words, practice, practice, practice is the key.
Yes.
Let me, before we go today, I would say my favorite pastime for me to improve on my English is meeting you, having lunch with you, having lunch with Kirk or Ajahn Edward. Doing so, it gives me an opportunity to interact, to speak, to hear, to learn more words, and perhaps correct my vocabularies or grammar as well, and parts of speech. What do you think?
Well, absolutely. Being a hungry learner is one of the most important things.
Thank you.
And I appreciate how you tend to come into the conversation remembering what we've said before, continuing conversations. It shows you care, it shows you're listening.
Thank you.
You know, there are two main points when you talk about communication. One, we need to give and share information.
Mm-hmm.
How do we do that? We do that through asking general questions and following up with specific related questions.
Thank you.
The general question makes the person feel comfortable, lets them share
Mm-hmm.
what information they want to share.
Okay.
The follow-up, which is what I was talking about with you, is so important because it shows you care and it shows you're listening.
Okay, it can be social matters, worldly matters, daily matters, anything, right?
Sure. What makes learning most fun is when
Okay.
it's something you like to learn.
Okay. Would you like to add anything else?
Well, I would just like to say thank you very much for having me today, and
thank
hope
you.
that a few of my thoughts. I would stress, teachers, get your students to learn how to ask questions.
Thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.